welcome to another episode of Pet Pals. I'm Bethany Davidson, the Humane Educator here at Animal Control, and back from a vacation. Wrangling for us again is our volunteer coordinator, Sean Snyder. We're starting off with a couple of cats on this episode, and the first one is one of our older kittens. Right now everybody wants those, 10 to, 16-week-old kittens because they like how small they are and how cute they are. And they kind of forget that, there's some older kittens that also need some love and some young adult cats. And this is Sunny, and she is appropriately in our greeter cage. She's a very confident, very friendly cat, and she's about 8 to 10 months old. So not quite a fully a functioning adult yet. Still has a little bit of that kitten personality to her, but much more established, a little bit calmer, a little less needy, if you will, but very friendly and has a lot of those qualities that people are really looking for in a cat. She is a cat who you can pick up and is comfortable and relaxed being held. As you can see, she's comfortable and relaxed sitting on Sean's lap, and a lot of people want that. But she also has a playful side to her, and she is still curious, and she's not just going to be that cat that lays around all day, but she is going to want to spend that time with you. And that's what a lot of people are looking for. And when you get those really young kittens, you don't necessarily know what you're signing up for. If you want this, but you're like, oh, I also really want a kitten, you might not get this. You might get the cat that's a little more independent. It's like, hey, I'm playing, please don't bother me. Or, one that's a little bit more active and getting into everything. So really thinking about when you're making those choices, what are you looking for? Is there something that's like a deal breaker for you? Because if you're looking for that one thing that you really, really want, sometimes it's a little bit easier to find that in a cat that's a little bit older.
So in addition to all the great qualities you mentioned, I heard she has some great markings the staff really love.
She does. So you look at her, you're probably like, oh, she's just like a brown tabby in white, but she has these on her front legs, these cute little stripes, these little white stripes that go down between her tabby markings. She's like, no, don't talk about me. So she's got little stripes on, white stripes on the fronts of both of her legs. That's really just something that kind of sets her apart. And a lot of people are looking for those unique markings so they can say, hey, look at my cat, she's really different. And it is something that's just like a fun little racing stripe down her legs or something. And it's also a great thing to be aware of when you're looking at your pets. Is there something that's a unique marking that really kind of is going to help identify them? Because if you know those things, if your animal were to get lost, it helps us figure out, is this your animal or is this an animal that looks similar to yours? So, noting that she has those little white stripes between the brown tabby, both on her front legs, and she has one on one of her back legs as well. Is really going to help to set her apart. There are other cats that have blazes, like white blazes down their nose, or, a spot on such and such a spot. We've had one cat that was all completely brown tabby except for one white toe. So those are all really helpful pieces of information. Not just are they fun, but they can help, again, identify your animal in the event that they were lost. And if your animal is lost, you definitely want to come here and, see if it is here and file a loss report. Those things are all going to be really helpful in making sure your animals get back home to you. If you want to take Sunny home with you and, also make sure she never gets lost as well, you can do that, start that process by going to visit fcac.as.me. Our next cat is a cat that's definitely identifiable and much different than what we have typically on our adoption floor. Obviously, he's wearing an outfit, which is definitely a key identifier that kind of sets him apart. But he is also a Himalayan mix. And most of our cats are domestic short hairs, with the exception of Milo, who's just a domestic long hair. So he's definitely far more unique than what we typically have here in our facility. This is Rod Stewart, and he's one of our young adult cats. He's between the ages of 3 and 4, and he's come a long way since he first arrived. First he came in, he was super, super shy, and was definitely kind of struggling to come out and greet people, and now he just loves attention. He asks for it, so he definitely needed some time to settle in. And whether or not that was just because he was nervous here in this environment or it was because he didn't feel well, we won't ever truly know. But he did come in with a pretty crazy skin infection, which is partially why he's wearing an outfit, and people can notice the redness still on his face, and that has some missing spots of fur. But so we're thinking that he had a couple of things going on. Number one, flea dermatitis, meaning that he's allergic to flea bites. And because those flea bites can be super, super itchy, then he starts licking and biting and pulling at his fur and pulling out his fur and, biting at his skin, which can cause an infection. And then the other thing is maybe a food allergy. So we are definitely seeing, that even though we were treating the fleas and the skin infection, there were still some issues going on. So they changed his diet to a limited ingredient diet, and he does seem to be making some good progress. So things for Rod, medically speaking, just keeping him on flea and tick preventative and making sure that he's eating that limited ingredient food that seems to be working for him. And, his fur is growing back in. Again, he's feeling better. He's being more confident, more social. We talk a lot about, if your animal's behavior is changing and you're noticing, a behavioral issue, you always want to check in and make sure it's not a medical problem, because medical issues can lead to a lot of stress, and stress can lead to behavioral changes. Whether or not, again, it was just the stress of this environment or the stress of his condition, now that he's feeling better, he's a much more social, affectionate guy.
So you talk a lot about it as medical, but there's something else people need to know, potential doctors need to know. What's that?
Yeah. So this guy was found outside. Apparently, one of the neighbors had kind of left him behind, and some people took him in one day when it was raining really hard because they felt bad for him. And their intention was to keep him, but he did not do well with their other cats in their households. He liked to start he started a couple of fights, I believe is what they said, with the other cats. So we are looking for Rod Stewart to be the only cat in his new home. Someone who's going to be committed to making sure that he's getting the proper diet and medical care, but also committed to keeping him as the only cat in the household. If that seems like the right type of fit for your family and you're interested in making him part of your home, the first step is going to be going to visit fcac.as.me to book an appointment to meet with him. Our first canine guest is one that's very new to the adoption floor. This is one of 2 shepherd mixes that we recently made available for adoption. This one is Gunner, and he's about a year old. And the first thing that I like about Gunner is his face. He has a super identifiable face. He has his mask, his black mask takes up a ton of his face, except for right around his eyes where he has these little brown spots, like reverse raccoon scenario, and then he also has the little black eyebrows in it too, which just makes it super cute. Again, we're talking about markings, making a dog really identifiable. That's something that's going to help make sure that everybody can identify him if you were to get lost, but also here because he's housed right next to the other shepherd. So it makes sure that everybody can tell the 2 of them apart a little bit more easily. He did come to us as a stray, so we named him Gunner. He still is learning that is his new name. So if you were to adopt him, it's not going to be an issue to kind of change his name because he's not attached to this one. During processing, he did really well. As you can see, he is very social. He likes affectionate. He's a leaner. He wants to be close to you. One of the things that I discovered about him that I really like is that he takes treats really nicely. We have a lot of dogs that are very eager to get their snacks, and so sometimes they're inadvertently, chomping on your hands a little bit to get those treats, but he takes them very nicely. He has good reactions to other dogs. He's very friendly. He's easy to get a leash on. He had no issues, with, giving up toys and things like that. But, he's big. And he is going to need some work on just basic manners because he just doesn't have any. No one's taught him yet. But he's treat motivated, so that's going to make that job all the easier. Once he gets into a home environment, when they're treat motivated, they're going to learn a lot more quickly if you can give them that great incentive.
So like a lot of our dogs, it can be challenging to walk him because he pulls hard. What can adopters do to make walking much better? So the first thing I always tell people is if you're going to do any type of training, right, you want to exercise your dog first. If he's full of pent up energy when you're trying to get him to walk nicely, it's not really going to go well. So if you have a space where you can really let him run around all that excess energy first, that's going to be a benefit. The next thing I always tell people is don't let them get away with bad behavior.
okay to set boundaries with your animals. If you're out on a walk with him and you let him pull you around, then he's learned that that's okay and he's going to keep doing it. So if you're really wanting to work on polite leash walking, take some time and kind of set that aside. Because, what I always tell people is when they're pulling, they stop. You put them in a sit, you kind of hang out for a second, you start to walk again. Oh, you're pulling again, we go in a sit. And then they learn, if I pull, then I have to stop going to what I want to check out. That's not any fun, so let me walk nicer because there's a benefit to walking nicer. And when they're walking next to you, you can also kind of shove some treats right there in their mouth, right at your knee, and they learn again, if I walk right here, I'm not pulling, I get lots of treats, so there's an incentive to do that. And those are the types of things that we would discuss with people during adoption interviews, just to make sure that they have a general overview of what they can do, and then recommending, trainers if they want to continue working on that in a more formal setting. But if you like what you see, and you think that Gunner's going to be a great addition to your household, the first step is going to be making that appointment as always, and you can do that by going to visit fcac.as.me. Our next guest is a dog that's probably going to get a lot of interest, but just because she's a golden retriever. But Eileen is looking for a very special family because she's not that typical golden retriever you see out on the street who loves everybody and is super gregarious and outgoing. While Eileen is a very sweet dog, she is a dog that's very shy and very nervous. So a lot of people are like, oh, golden retrievers are great family dogs. Eileen doesn't want to live with small children. She's afraid of, loud noises and fast movements and things like that. And she really needs a calm, patient household to kind of really get comfortable and kind of blossom and show off her true personality. So if you're looking for, that, typical, I saw it in a movie golden retriever, that's not really Eileen. But again, super friendly. She is starting to come around, but she is a little bit nervous. So the staff are noting that she's starting to ask for attention more, and she's starting to kind of put her head on your lap and, say, hey, pet me, I really want some attention. But she did really take some time to come around. She came as a stray, and they actually had to trap her, so they couldn't even get her to come up to them. So, again, that's why we're really looking for that kind of patient, understanding, possibly a little bit more dog savvy family. She did come in with another dog. So while she's a little bit reactive in the kennel, she was happy with her dog canine friend that she was kind of roaming around with. So a family with an existing dog might be helpful for her to kind of help build her confidence. Sometimes when we have dogs that are used to being with other dogs, they can kind of feed off of that. This dog says it's safe, they're my friend, I can kind of follow their lead and see them kind of accelerate in that confidence and level of comfort a little bit more quickly with that canine friend.
So like you said, Eileen's been a little bit shut down while she's been here, but there is something that makes her light up. What's that?
So like a lot of dogs, she's a fan of the squeaky. She loves a squeaky toy. I was kind of testing the theory because it was in her paperwork and I hadn't seen it. And so I went up to her with a toy and I started squeaking it. And she came, yesterday when I tried to take her picture, she ran away from me. She was like, don't come close to me, you're a stranger. But she came right up to the front of her kennel and her tail was wagging. She was like sniffing and investigating it. So there are things that you can really use to, again, help build that confidence. But when you're using those types of items, whether it's a toy or a treat, you want to keep in mind that sometimes animals really like those things and they might get closer to you than they're actually comfortable with to obtain that item and then get a little freaked out when they have it and then they're like, oh, wait, how did I get this close? So sometimes when you're building confidence, just like Sean just did with that treat, tossing it so that they don't have to get really close to you. Same thing with the toy, you can toss it. And then as they get more comfortable, you can kind of have them come up and take it from you. And again, those are all things that we would go over with people in an adoption interview setting. But again, Eileen has a ton of great potential to be a very sweet, friendly dog, but she does need somebody who's going to be patient with her and really work with her to make her feel comfortable and confident, and also understand that she might not be the dog that wants to hang out, at First Friday or First Saturday or whatever it is, or go to all the breweries on the weekend. She might just want to hang out with you and your family at home. If you're prepared to help Eileen build up her confidence and you want to make her part of your family, you're going to need to go to visit fcac.as.me to start that process. Our next guest is one of our many terrier mixes that we're famous for. She and our next guest are siblings from the same household, same property. First up is the younger of the two. This is Gemini, and she is 4 years old. And when you're talking about pit bull type dogs, everybody's going to say, this is a gray dog. But in pit bull land, this is a blue dog. She's blue and white, and she does have kind of a very beautiful coat. And she is the more outgoing of the two of those dogs. She's actually in our greeter kennel, the very first kennel. And even though we don't allow people to go back there, there is a lot of traffic from staff and volunteers, and she's doing pretty well there. But both of these dogs came from a property where they weren't really socialized a ton. So they were outside dogs that lived an outside life. So they're still getting accustomed to household things and being inside and, getting and receiving a lot of, love and attention. And I think they are good examples of the resiliency of our pets because she's super affectionate and she comes right up to you and she's eager to get pets and treats and to investigate people, but she is a dog that you want to treat, like she doesn't know anything, like you would a puppy, and really be patient with her and reward her when she's experiencing new things. So she starts to associate those things as a positive, like, oh, you heard a noise, here, have a treat. Oh, this movement, you saw this new bike or whatever, oh, here's a treat or some affection or something like that, to really let her know that those things are all okay. She's also going to be a dog that is quite large. I think she's the largest dog on the floor right now at a whopping 93 pounds. So she's a big girl. She carries it well, though. She really does. So, working on just good manners training is going to be important because those are all things that she needs. But we really feel like she does have a lot of potential in the right household. But more of a very sweet dog, but more of a little bit of a project dog just because, she wasn't given all of those basic, socialization and good manners things as a younger dog.
So we talk about a fair amount of dogs that have a head aversion or head shy. Yep. She has an aversion to something different. What's that? That's
right. So a lot of dogs don't like it when you kind of reach for their head. And that's always a general rule of thumb. Don't go straight for their head. But Gemini is more uncomfortable with people touching her around her belly and her chest. So putting her in a harness might be a little bit more uncomfortable for her than maybe some other dogs because it does require handling and pressure and tension in those specific areas. So maybe a martingale or something like that might be better for her. And some dogs don't like it when you touch their feet or their mouth. So there's, dogs that have areas of discomfort. And we can talk about during, again, adoption interviews, how to kind of do some counter conditioning and desensitization and get her to be more comfortable with those types of areas. But because of their overall just lack of socialization and a little bit of shyness, and then, obviously being uncomfortable with certain areas of touch, we are looking for Gemini to be adopted to a family with teens and adults, no younger kids. We want to make sure everybody can understand, her level of comfort, so that she feels safe and everybody in the household is also safe. But if you think that your family is the right one to show Gemini here what a great life it is to be a house dog, then you can go to visit fcac.as.me to get that process started. Our last guest on the show today is Pisces. As we mentioned, she came in with our last guest, Gemini. She's a little bit older at 5 years old. And, same thing, outside dogs their whole life. Just a little bit nervous, definitely needs some confidence building. But what we've noticed about Pisces is, of the two of them, Pisces is the more affectionate. She is a little bit less confident than Gemini, but she is the one that wants to be in your space bubble. She wants to sit on your lap and be right there, leaning in, getting all of that attention. She really enjoys that part of being with a human. And despite not necessarily having, a ton of things, like, their behavior assessments are pretty good, like, willingly letting go of objects and things like that. And their just overall friendliness. They, again, did live together, but I don't think that they were necessarily interacting in their scenario. They were both outside, but I don't think it was one of those like, hey, we hang out together, so we are great with other dogs, or we could be adopted together because we lived together in that kind of capacity. But doesn't seem to have issues walking by the other dogs, and the kennel just doesn't really seem to care, which is also a good thing. And unlike some of the other dogs, she does have a little bit of medical. She has a heart murmur, which isn't uncommon. We see heart murmurs a fair amount, kind of those low-level heart murmurs in some of our dogs, and our cats as well. You're just looking for like exercise intolerance, coughing, things like that, to be on the lookout for. Doesn't always mean that they're going to develop heart disease, but something a vet should be on the lookout for, and you should be paying attention to those things and discuss it further with your veterinarian.
So although she's a senior dog, she has something in common with puppies. What's that? And
that just goes back to the socialization. She's an unsocialized dog. And when you're getting those dogs that have not really been in a home environment, and it's not just, Pisces and Gemini. Rex, I think, would also qualify for that. It's just the socialization, treating them like you would an 8-week-old puppy that's new to the world. This is a car ride. Car rides are awesome. You get treats in the car. We go get, ice cream when we're in the car. They're awesome. You want to do this. We're going on a hike. This new place is fun. You can investigate things. You can smell things. You get treats. The microwave buzzer noise is awesome because it means something good happens to you. So kind of being mindful of those things and making sure all of their experiences, especially new experiences, are good and positive ones. Setting boundaries with them so that they have appropriate behavior, but doing it in a way that's going to build them up, not tear them down, is really going to be important. And apparently Sean found her spot. She really is loving that ear rub scenario right there. So again, tons of potential, but just making sure we're finding the right family, possibly a dog savvy family, one that's going to be committed to, helping them, being very patient with them, and again, looking for families that are teens and adults, as opposed to households with young children for Pisces. But if you think that you are going to be the right family to set her on that path for becoming a confident and outgoing girl, then you need to go to visit fcac.as.me to book that appointment to start that whole process. As is always the case, there's far more animals than we could ever showcase on one episode of Pet Pals. So if you don't see something that you think is going to be what you're looking for, go ahead and book that appointment anyway, because there's constantly new animals arriving, making their way to our adoption floor, and maybe they are the one that you've been searching for.